had this conversation with a wonderful composer that I worked with last year back when I was doing more mentorship. And I just wanted to share what we talked about with you. And I hope that it, number one, like you get something useful out of it, because Charlie is someone who has been doing music full time for a while, and he was really struggling with getting into film. And I loved working with him so much that for me, like just getting to see him apply the ideas that I have about being in the film industry and like connecting with filmmakers and getting work as a composer, meeting people, seeing how he applied that in his own journey was super fulfilling. And obviously I do hope that it like encourages you to work with me, but at the same time, like Charlie is such an awesome guy, and he's thought a lot about our work together, and he has never experienced something like this before, like actually meeting filmmakers, working on a feature. He's currently trying to sign his second feature. It's only been a year since we worked together. But yeah, I learned so much from working with him, and I'm so happy that I recorded this conversation. There's so many gems in here that have, in some ways, like it started in my head, but then I just shared it with him like throughout the course of our mentorship. But then he like made it his own, like the way that he like says things, like things that I've said, but like in his own way. Like it just sounds so good. I don't know how else to describe it, but he's super insightful, very well spoken, and an amazing composer. And I'm not just saying that because I worked with him. Like he's genuinely a very talented composer and an awesome guy. I keep saying that. But yeah, if you are interested in working with me, you know where to find me. Without further ado, here is Charlie.
I don't know if when we spoke last time, an agent DM'd me on Instagram and was just talking about what they offer in representation. We jumped on a call, and then we've been liaising, and then I got what was the last when was the last time we spoke? What month? Can you remember?
I think either late last year or earlier this year, maybe.
Was it like maybe Feb or January?
Maybe, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I got because that was that feature that I pitched for,
Yeah, the
and they were
first
like,
one.
"We like your music."
Mm-hmm.
I ended up getting a email from WhatsApp from the director saying, "If you're still interested, we're just wrapping everything up now." I was like, "Yeah, obviously." And then so I waited to speak. When I got that message through, I then contacted the agent and was like, "Look, they've asked me to do this. It would be great to get some representation on it because I don't really want to handle contracts and stuff, and it will be a good in for me to begin working with you in the team."
Smart. Yeah.
So yeah, cool, amazing. And it's taken a while to get going. They sent me the script through like about 2 weeks ago, and I'm just putting together an email at the moment with 2 cues of sort of thematic stuff that I think might work for some of the ideas and the themes in the script. Then I'm going to CC in the agent and be like, "Hey, this is my agent. Go and deal with that." And then just hopefully then we can just get rolling. Because on the phone he was like, "I know we haven't spoken about fee, and I know we haven't got anything locked in, but we can talk about that down the line." And I'm like, great. And I think that's a good time for me to outsource that to someone who will be able to advocate for my interests a bit better than I think I will as well. And obviously they take a percentage, but a big goal that I know we talked about as well was me to get some sort of representation. So to get an in that way was really cool. And then from that, about 3 weeks ago, she asked me to write some solo piano music for the agency who are working with another, I think it's a library, I'm not sure, but like a bespoke thing. And so, yeah, I've just finished those 3 solo pieces. I was going to record them live, but I'm actually going to do that a bit later on, and that's going to go towards content for my website and stuff. So super busy. If I can just get this feature like locked down into a contract and I'll be like, cool, then I can just sort of relax, get it done. and then have a really nice credit on like a. He was saying it's a small budget, but for me, I'm like, that sounds like a big budget to me. The director's saying it's big budget. You know, and all you want is sort of 1% of that, and you're good to go. So, yeah, I think this year it's been a great start to the year. Also, I noticed my royalties have been going up in the last quarter. You know, that really really slow curve, but yeah, that's been nice. And performing loads, writing with a singer. We've just finished an album that we recorded last month. She's just finishing her vocals, and we're sort of like delivering that to the world. It's jazz quartet, but we've also got some horns on there as well, which is super exciting because like the play is amazing. We've had some gigs in central London, and there's talks of Europe, and there's even talks of getting out to Africa to perform some of it as well, because she's transracially adopted, and so the whole kind of album is about the narrative of her adoption process and coming to terms with her identity and all these really interesting themes around like race and sex and everything. So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I remember around this time last year, you were like, no one's like giving me a film yet. Like, so hard.
How small my violin. Yeah,
Like
man.
now that like all
I
these
remember
things,
that too.
yeah. Now that all these things are happening, like what do you think?
I don't really know yet. I mean, things are happening. It's still it's hilarious, isn't it? Because even now, sitting here with things going on that if you told me last year, I'd be super excited about. I'm still until like I see the contract in my hand. I feel like it's not happening with this feature, even though it almost certainly is. And I think it's very difficult. And we've spoken at length about this. That when you are in the position of being quite keen for work and being like a bit of a beg, when you're not getting feedback in terms of communication from producers and directors, because obviously their lives, you know, you're bottom of the list, and rightly so. It's very hard to sit in that space of like, I need answers and I want to know what's going on. But I'm definitely getting better at that. But I mean, the overall sort of trajectory of where I was last year compared to now is amazing, and just feeling a lot more focused, feeling a lot more optimistic. I didn't really suffer hugely with imposter syndrome because I was obviously full time composing anyway. But
Hmm?
in terms of actually moving into film and seeing that as a real avenue, is now like it's there, and it's just super. It's just really exciting, and I can't wait just to get this credit done so I can just go and hound more people for work.
Yeah, it's so easy to be like, I worked on this cool thing and it's kind of similar
Yeah,
to yours. Like we should work
yeah,
together.
exactly. Yeah, and the idea of having representation excites me so much because, you know, again, with stuff we've spoken about, I think one of the really cool things about what we did together was understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are. In fact, even when I did a feature last year, which you knew about at the time, and is Tom at Sandstorm Film, amazing guy, really generous with his energy and his time and his feedback. And we've basically become friends now. And he's got another project later on this year. He asked me to do something the other week before everything didn't work out. But he was also like, I mean, it's an interesting metaphor because he goes, you know, he could tell that I was feeling quite fatigued with the film, and you know, about finding work as well and these other things. And he's like, "You're a creative, do the creative thing." And I'm aware that although that's true, we still have to do the outsourcing and the promotion and the stuff thing. And so for me, it's figuring out like where's my balance going to be in that, because even if I get representation, I'm still going to do I'm still going to be putting out content. I'm still going to be developing an artist brand. I'm still going to be positioning myself within the space to be lucky when opportunities for luck arise. And I don't think once you get an agent, it's like, cool, done now. So it's about finding a way to preserve my energy to still like be creative and still do the all the other stuff as well.
When the agent contacted you, how did you just like assess that opportunity and like make sure that they were right for you? And then how did you think about, what your responsibilities were going to be? Because a lot of people, I think, have that expectation of like, oh, once you have an agent, like you made it and like you're set, you don't ever have to worry about finding work again. Like, what was your mindset there?
First of all, I was just super excited that someone had messaged me. Again, a phenomenon that we spoke about that I just didn't really think would ever happen, and then it started happening a lot after we were working together. Um, and went on their website immediately, checked out their roster of composers, the work that they were doing, saw it was all like some really amazing stuff. And then we jumped on a call, and she just spoke about what she offered, or what the team offers. And it was kind of this idea of, if you've got contracts to work on, because they have a legal department, then if you've got contracts to work on that you're not really sure about, bring them to us. We can help negotiate that, advocate, do all these things. Excuse me. Obviously, they take a fee, but then over enough time, you bring enough work that they then just take you on their roster and source work for you. So it's kind of like a prick thing at the beginning. In terms of my responsibilities with that, I think it was just at the start of just being as good as I could with communicating with this person, especially when they asked me to do that solo piano thing, when I spoke to them about the feature. Just trying to position myself as someone who seems like a nice person to work with, I think.
How do you think they found you?
I actually don't know. That's a good point. I mean, it was on Instagram, but I don't know what. Maybe it was a reel that came up. Maybe. I mean, it's definitely worth asking her and see. But yeah, I think it's probably from that, because she's a junior agent, and her job is to source new talent. So maybe her algorithm is just swimming in people on Logic and doing doorcasts and things.
Yeah. Do you have any not like fears, but do you have any concerns about how things might change now that there is an agent in the picture?
Not really. I mean, I've always been of the opinion that I don't mind, paying someone to take care of an aspect of the work that I find challenging. And especially with the amount of links that they've already got, that's very useful. I think from what I've already gleaned, the relationship with this person, this agent, is great, and they're very forthcoming, and she's also a musician, which really helps.
That's cool.
Yeah, super cool, right? In fact, a lot of them are, I think, in the team, or heavily involved in music in some part of their life at some point. So they really get it, and I don't think there would be a point where I would have to compromise on anything, where I feel like I would be out of control of anything. And I again, like I said just recently, it wouldn't stop me from still promoting my brand, my musical brand. In fact, it was funny, I was at I think you said this on a call once. It's like, it doesn't really matter how good you get, even people right at the top are still out there trying to find work. And I was at my friend Michele, bass player's birthday recently, and there was loads of musicians there, some like phenomenal people there. And there's this one guy that lectures at one of the universities, one of the music conservatoires in London, at Trinity. He's lectures on string composition, and we were just chatting about what I did and so on and so forth. And I was like, "Oh, I've just got my first feature," and he was like, "Man, that's amazing." I was like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "It's taking like 5 years." He's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, it's taking ages." He goes, "What are you talking about? 5 years isn't long at all." I was like, "What do you mean?" And they had a guest lecturer come in. I can't remember his name. Quite a big deal composer. I wish I remember his name. Anyway, long and the short of it is, he comes in and he's like, "You need to be prepared to do nothing for a really long time." and I think that's so true of this world and this work. And even when you've got something which is exciting and cool and going to take you to the next step, you still have to be prepared that I might be doing nothing for a while still. And in that time, what do I do? And I think this thing that we're talking about now with the agent is a perfect example of that. Like, even though I'm getting some exciting lead, it's not going to stop from everything that you and I have spoken about anyway. The need to do it constantly. We spoke about luck, and you made a really astute point of like, is it that you're being lucky, or are you positioning yourself to be receptive to these moments when they happen? And that sounds very abstract, and I guess like a concrete example of that is like going to a film festival, reaching out to local communities, making sure that your Instagram is like up to date and you're constantly posting, even though I don't do that. Just positioning yourself where you need to be. That was a huge one for me. Understanding that doing like a piece of content can reach much further than you think, to people you had no idea would even be listening to you. I mean, I had some people message me after a few things of just, love your work, love what you did. Well, I've got a TV show coming up, and I mean, I haven't heard back from them, but you're out in the world the minute you put something out there, and especially in our industry, it's quite niche, relatively, I guess. So people are, and you always say this as well. You always like, if someone's like a director or a producer, they're going to be seeing your stuff. They're going to be involved in that world. That it can be fun as well. That content doesn't have to be a drag. We've spoken as well about like ego in content, and you're much better at than I am of just throwing stuff out there without too much thought of how you might appear or being too polished. And I'm probably too vain to be doing that, you know. But it's that's another thing to sort of let go of your ego. We've spoken a lot about too, which is very helpful.
You talked about finding work being a mindset that you like have to cultivate, and that like what we did together was very much that.
Yeah.
Could you like for composers who like don't understand what you mean by that, could you like unpack it?
Totally. So it's funny. I lived in South Korea for a year and a half, and I had a friend out there who I haven't spoken to for years. She's now teaching at like a community college kind of thing in the States. And one of her students wants to be a composer. And she's like, do you mind if I just like hook you guys up and you can have a quick chat? I'm like, yeah, cool, of course. Like, you know, pass it on and all that stuff. We get on the call, and, you know, he's like 19, he's super young. And he was like, well, how do I get into the industry? And I was like, man, just write music all the time. Just love and enjoy writing music all the time. Adopt that as part of your lifestyle. And, you know, hang up the call. And my friend was like, oh, he's so excited. He's so motivated now. It's really amazing. Thank you. And the reason I'm telling that story is because when you're a composer, naturally, your inclination is to hone your craft. If you're a musician, naturally, your inclination is to hone your craft. That's practice, whether that's theory, whether that's sound design, whatever it is. And we forget that part of that daily routine and part of that lifestyle and that mindset needs to be self-promotion, because it is all you are your own business. And so in terms of what it looks like, especially when we were working together, I would allocate time in the day to source a filmmaker, research them, put together a bespoke email or a bespoke form of correspondence for them. And in the same way that I do, you know, minimum 2 hours of practice every day, that also needs to be part of the routine. Now, I wouldn't say it needs to be part of the routine in the same way that your craft does, because I think you go through seasons of sourcing work. Like at the moment, I'm currently in a season where I'm doing less of that because I've got bits coming in, but that's not going to last. And I know I'm going to go back to that point at some point, and when I do, I'll be employing everything that we've spoken about, i.e. the mindset. So you've got to be relentless with it, unfortunately. There's no way around it. It's one of those things that advice that I always hear as well in the industry is don't quit. You know, the people that haven't made it, the people that stop. And I think that's the same with looking for work and filmmakers. And that's why when one of the coolest things about what we did together was just having a soundboard every week. So I could just get my little violin out and moan to you and cry. But like, I know that sounds stupid and trivial, but it's not, because who else am I going to talk to about that? I don't work in a company. I have some other friends who write music, but not film or anything like that. So yeah, you've got to find a way to make yourself accountable. And that's what you did for me, for sure.
It's really amazing to me that like you went from like bemoaning the process of it to realizing like, okay, this does work. I just needed to like give it time. There's so many composers that kind of vent to me and say like, oh, like, you know, how do I make this happen faster? How do I get more efficient, as like a way to deal with impatience and like the uncertainty of like you don't have an answer yet. They said, oh, let's keep in touch, but that means it's over. And I'm like, no, like give it time. Obviously that's easier said than done to like accept that. So in your experience, like what was it like to deal with that in the beginning? And then now that you know better, like what do you know how to do when impatience arises?
It's very difficult in any area of one's life, whether that's professional, emotional, spiritual, whatever it is. Uncertainty is that like fundamentally frustrating thing because you have no control over it. And it's not until it happens once that you're like, oh, okay, cool. I know this is a thing. But to anticipate that first moment, because it will happen, but given enough time, I think the only advice I would give someone, or the only way I approached it, was just, well, what's my alternative? This is the career I'm doing. This is the career I will only do. And given enough time and enough quality contact, not like just blanket emailing people, someone will hear that, And even if it's just a conversation that you start on Instagram that doesn't lead to anything, it's like it's reps, if you're like trying to get fit, you're trying to work out, or you're trying to learn a piece of music, you need to repeat it again and again and again. It's the only thing I can say is that patience does pay off. And if that's too difficult for you, then I would say two things. I would say, without being too harsh, maybe it's not the right thing for you. And if you're finding yourself impatient, go and write more music then. Get better at that. Because there's always a time when you can be better at what you're doing. And again, lots of people write music in our industry. Lots of people are trying to do it. We're always trying to do it. We have been trying to do it. And again, I don't want to sound too like bumper sticker about this, but only you can create your own sound. And I've noticed that happening with me recently, and people I'm working with, like, oh, you do that thing really well. But that's because I've spent time doing it. And so what I would say is, when you're waiting for the other part of this career to kick off, go and do that other thing that you need to do as well, which is your sound, your voice, what you want to say.
Yeah, I remember when we were working together, you would tell me about ideas you had for like content or like music that you were really interested in, like the flamenco dancing music, for example. I think passion plays a big role in, like you said, what we do during those periods when nothing is really happening yet. How have you found passion, playing a role in your career?
It's it, mate. It's everything. I've had moments recently. I went to go and see my friend. I'm telling you lots of stories today. I don't know what's going on. But I went to go see my friend. We went to go. He's also a phenomenal guitarist. He's got a really popular YouTube channel. And went to go see him. We went to go and work out at like 10 a.m. on a Friday morning, and his girlfriend had just gone to work. And we looked at each other and were like, oh, life's pretty great, isn't it? Because it affords you to do certain things. And it's like, yeah, but it's taken lots and lots of hours to get to this. But what makes you sit down in front of your computer, in front of your keyboard or guitar or whatever, or your email about sent off, is passion. It's the driving force behind this career, I think. And with all due respect to lots of other careers, I don't expect many people who work in accounts wake up on a Monday morning and go, cool, buzzing, can't wait to get to work today. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm being, a bit unfair.
Maybe someone out there. Yeah.
Maybe someone loves it. Maybe someone just loves crunching numbers. But yeah, if that's not there for you, you're really going to struggle, I think. This was like the most fun thing ever. It's what I said to this young guy on the call. I was like, man, if you do this, you'll have the best life. It'll be really hard for a while, but eventually you'll just be like, people are paying me money to make music. Amazing. And once you get there, and like, I'm not satisfied by any means with where I am. God, I'm sure neither are you. But
there's always something.
There's always something. And that's the passion that keeps you going, I think.
I've thought about passion as like an oxygen mask, where like, you help yourself first and then you try and help others. When I was younger, I thought, maybe I need to do things in this order, and like, one, get really good at composing. And then when that's ready, then I'll start like booking jobs, and like things are just gonna happen. But I completely underestimated the value of like learning through experience, and like actually messing up sometimes, and like not knowing anything, and being in those situations where you're like, holy shit, like, am I in over my head? Like, what am I doing here right now?
For sure.
On your first feature specifically, I mean, you've been doing production music and like you know what it's like to do a large volume of music in X amount of time.
Mm.
There are a number of composers in my community who also have that same background. How did you find that experience like coming in handy?
I'm a big, again, when I speak to this young guy, I'm a big advocate of doing production music, because it's developing a skill set. Especially in lots of different genres, which is usually the case. And if you're lucky enough to get a deal where you're getting paid per track, it's like I can sit down, I write, and get paid, and that kind of cycle keeps going. And it's a very good way to be disciplined with your writing. Does it translate to film scoring? I mean, in the obvious sense, yes, because it's music is music, but also not at all. It's because you're not thinking really about narrative in library music. You're thinking about function, I guess. And you've given a very specific brief where kind of you get a kind of a blank slate when you start to sit down and write a feature. And in fact, I found writing the feature really tiring, whereas I can churn out like maybe 10 pieces of music a week for publishing if I needed to. So that was a real adjustment for me. Writing to picture, writing to moments, trying to capture things. And also, and even again, the director of the film, Tommy, made some comments to me about it, and I think it was fair. He was like, he would listen to something. He's like, I can tell you're tired with this scene. I can tell you're finding it fatiguing. And he was right. Like sometimes, there was a lot of dialogue, heavy scenes that he wanted me to score, and you're a lot more invested in the process. I think you're very removed from library music. It's like write it, forget it, gone. Who knows where it goes? Find out about it in 2 years when you get a royalty statement. Whereas the film, you write it, it's your name, it's your signature, it's everything. So yeah, that's a convoluted way of saying yes, it helps, but it is definitely a different beast. And I completely agree with you about the order of how people come into composing, not necessarily being like, people do make the mistake of like, okay, once I get the perfect music and once I get the perfect, like album together, then I'll send it off. Sometimes you don't need that. Sometimes, I mean, okay, it's got to be at some basic standard, but taking leaps and just putting yourself out there is such an amazing way to start for anyone at any level. Arguably even more so for beginners, because maybe there's a filmmaker just waiting to work with you. So yeah, I think you're definitely right about that.
Can you tell the story of how you got your first feature from where you were looking online, from messaging them and then booking it?
Yeah. I found, so we spoke about lots of different ways of sourcing work, one of which was a website called mandy.com. I guess we can say that. I don't know what the plugin was. Okay, cool. And there was an advertisement for a gig for a film, and you and I had set out what my sort of boundaries were in terms of sort of fee, quality of the work, where is it likely to go, and this ticked all the criteria. And I messaged the account on this through this website, and I noticed he'd put some references, and he'd gave a scene to score. Actually, sorry, tell a lie. I submitted some of my work because he said, I like music. I want music in the style of this, this, and this. So I submitted some of my work. He's like, cool, here's a scene. Can you please write some music for it? So I really went to town on it. And I really looked at parts of the script. I looked at the scenes. I scored for the scene. I gave him not what he was expecting at all. And then I actually did more than what he'd asked for. I wrote piano themes for 2 of the characters, and gave some kind of rationale behind why I thought this was suited to the thematic of the character. And he loved it. And, he said there were 2 other people going for it, but he was like, there's one I haven't heard, but they'd have to do a lot to top that. And I think, look, I'm sure their music was great as well. But I think because I went to that extra detail, because this is, this was a really important project for him because it was actually fundamentally about his relationship with his father. And, you know, again, something that you and I spoke about at length was a passion for storytelling. And if you can tap into that in a pitch and convey that you're like, I'm not just trying to get paid here. I mean, obviously you want to get paid, but you also want to tell a story for and with someone. And I think that was what I tried to keep in mind when I was writing the music and writing the pitch. And then, yeah, got the gig. Tom's a legend. We worked together for months, like an insane amount of back and forth. He came to a gig to see me play earlier this year. And yeah, now I've got a great contact in the industry who I hopefully and look forward to working with again. You know, it was a really great experience, and yeah, it was cool.
How is this experience different from ways you've tried to look for work and connect with people in the past?
I haven't really tried to connect with you. So it's entirely different. Yeah, I guess that I didn't really, before we started working together, I was just, you know, not a clue, deer in headlights sort of thing. Um, the publishing stuff I started years ago, and you know, sent a lot of emails, again, like custom emails, but yeah, nothing really compares to this, to be honest. But it's definitely informed how I intend and how I look for work now when I do that. And it is kind of almost always relationship first, relationship priority. Again, something that you've spoken a lot about.
I think some composers might look at this story as like, oh, you're an amazing composer. You found like a job listing, you applied, and you won.
Mm,
Is there anything you want to add to your story? Because on the one hand, you know, we talked about lots of different ways to find filmmakers, like
mm,
crowdfunding sites, YouTube, Vimeo, film festival archives, like looking up communities like around you or
mm,
collectives and things. This, I would say, is like the what most people think of when they think of finding work. Like you find
mm,
something that's like happening right now and you apply.
mm.
Um, what would you say to a composer that would write off this story as like, yeah, Charlie's amazing, he applied, he won. Like, that's not me.
um, I say thanks for the compliment for a start. um, this particular gig as well, it was very well suited to my style of writing. You know, it was a lot. He originally wanted essentially a solo piano suite, with a huge nod to the romantics like Chopin, Rachmaninoff. So I was like, I can definitely do this. I'm sure there are lots of other people that can do that as well. And so to say it's just because you're a good composer, you pitched and you got it. Like, obviously, some of that's true in terms of being able to deliver the music, but I really think it's about the relationship. I really think it's about seeing beyond what this person's written down that they want. You almost need to tell them what they want without them realizing it, but not in like a very like authoritarian way, but just here's how I hear it, here's how I see it. And I think I've had other leads that at some point I'll probably follow up, but I've sent no music to them whatsoever. It's just something that they contacted me about. And I think that before we started working together, the idea that you get work because of who you are as opposed to what you write, I just didn't even know about. I didn't even think it was a thing. But it is. And for people that are skeptical of that, that's like, we'll do it and watch.
I love that. Like it's about who you are.
Mm.
When you
But
were
sorry, just to cut you
connecting,
off. Sorry, as a to compound that idea,
hmm?
Tom, now that we were friends, he was like, I wasn't going to give you the job originally because I looked at your photo and I was like, nah, not this guy. Because for some reason, he thought it needed to be, I don't know what his rationale was. But again, it's proving the point. Like, it's who I actually was as opposed to who he thought I was and what I brought to it in my own unique voice of Charlie and how I heard that music.
Do you think then that like vulnerability plays a big role, like allowing yourself to be who you are when you know, write these demos or like you reach out to someone?
completely, because they're being as vulnerable, if not more, than you are. It's their project, and especially on these kinds of websites where, you know, a lot of it is passion stuff. A lot of it is heavily motivated by someone needing to make this film, not doing it for a studio, doing it because they wanted to get bags. It's like something to them. And if you don't meet that, then like, good luck, really, because people can tell. And what's the point of writing if you're not going to put yourself in it? Again, that's why it's so different to publishing. When I'm writing 10 tracks a week, I'm not like, oh, I hope this means something. Like, I don't care. Like, it's not that I don't care, but, you know, it's very, very different. And at your peril, I think, as a composer, you run the risk of missing out on opportunity if you're not really turning up as yourself and throwing it all out there.
There's a lot of composers who worry about, you know, if they open themselves up to something and like care too much, that like it's gonna hurt when it doesn't happen. They're afraid to be disappointed. Could you speak to that?
Yeah. Well, what's your alternative?
Mhm.
You're just not because you're worried about it. I've pitched for loads of stuff that I really cared about and like haven't even heard back sometimes. But again, it goes back to the original piece of advice I get. The only people that don't make it are the ones that quit, that don't try. And if you're worried about being rejected, at least you know that if you're chosen for who you are. And if you're rejected, you're rejected for who you are, which is much better than it'd be even worse to be rejected for someone you're not. Like, fuck, that's not even who I really am. Like, you know, then what are you doing? Then you're really like missing the point entirely. Authenticity is the only path that has any value in pursuing, because like I said, what's the alternative?
Yeah. I mean, I find it kind of hard to explain to people like how it is I can like be in this industry this way, like just being myself. Like I really can't do anything else because I spent a lot of my life trying to be someone else and like, you know, please my parents and like be everything people wanted me to be.
Mm.
Um, but like how would you encourage someone to like, you know, figure out like who are you and like what kind of art do you want to make and like what kind of
Mm.
people do you want to work with? Because a lot of
Oh man.
people they look at me, they're like, I don't know, like I just want to work on anything. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
not helpful.
Oh man, I get that though. I get both sides of that. I absolutely have been, and to a certain extent, will always be the person who's like, just give me work. No, I need this to work. And again, that's why I'm also another advocate for publishing, because it sort of takes away the pressure of making it a bit. You're like, I'm in music, I'm composing, I'm doing that. Like that's taken care of. My rent's can be taken care of, whatever it is, and it frees you up space to be more creative and be less demanding to what someone's needs are. It's the age old question in art, I think, of how do you cultivate your voice and how do you, I mean, you do it so effortlessly. And I think there's something to be said for a certain type of person that can do that. And look, creatives, performers, especially, I'm very guilty of it, huge attention seekers. And I think you've got to figure out is what do I need from other people's attention, and why do I need it? And I've asked myself that question a lot. And I think for me, it was a case of realizing that the worth of my music is not located outside of it. It's mine, and it's my story to tell and my music to make. And then it's something I was thinking about recently as well. I was like, for example, I love four minor. I'm obsessed with it. It's a sound that I love, and it's a sound that I always want to put into my music. So I do it, you know. And for some people, it might be overly romantic. It might be overly sentimental. Don't care. Like I like that sound, and so I'm going to write with that sound in mind. And that, whatever the version of that little anecdote is for someone, follow your ears. Follow what you like to play, hear, write, and then someone else will hear that in your writing. And then eventually, having spent enough time essentially copying a sound, copying a style. It just morphs into your own thing, and then you just run with that. That's really, it's such a hard question to answer. Like, how do you cultivate your sound when all you want is just work? Yeah, I mean, I would always say try and get into publishing if you can. If you just want to do music, try start with that, and then this other world will come. But if you don't want to do that and you are trying to find work, then I would say stop doing that. I would say do what you've spoken about. Just try and find how to put yourself out there. Just be like, I'm a musician, whether I get work or not. Ideally, you've got some other job to support you at this period of time. But yeah, man, personality, self takes priority over anything else.
Can you talk about your journey, like first reaching out to people and then slowly like realizing all the things that you talked about?
Super frustrating at the beginning. That was very difficult at the beginning. Because again, like I'm not immune from the things you're just saying about like I just want to work. Like I had that too. Like I found you in that headspace of like I need this work and I want to work. It was a lot of contacting. It was a lot of silence. It was a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration. A lot of why is no one getting back to me? Like, why not me? A lot of that going on. And then after a couple months, you get like a reply. You're like, oh wow, someone's actually got back to me. And it's like, hey man, lovely, thanks for reaching out. Keep you in the loop. Sometimes it was just having a conversation about someone's art. That was the biggest shift for me, actually. I think back now is remembering that you just love film and that you love stories and that you love music, and so do these other people. And once I started thinking like that, once I just started reaching out because that was really cool what they did, or that piece of work was really, it just started to happen a lot more. And I don't know if that's because I came up more authentically. I don't know if that's because it became easier to reach out to more people. But after that, yeah, people would like DM me who I had never contacted before. Not loads, but like enough to be like, cool, I've got a bite, And then the feature stuff happened after that. And it's like, I don't really know how to explain it. It's like you put yourself into this world of art and communicating, and the longer you're in it, the more you connect, the more people connect with you, the more your web kind of just seems to disseminate. I guess it's a variation on the theme of affirmations. When you make an affirmation, it's not as if you're tapping into like the transcendent nature of reality. You're just saying something again and again and again to orient your perspective, your vision, your awareness to this thing. And that is the same principle for what you teach and what we spoke about. It's just be there, turn up, communicate, connect authentically. And then, then it starts to happen.
All the work that you did leading up to your feature, I remember something we talked about a lot was the feeling of like your interactions being contrived, like you
Mm-hmm.
were acting, hoping to get like, this result out of it. How did you
Mm.
navigate those feelings?
Acknowledge that that's how I was feeling and that's what it felt like. But there's a natural skepticism I think that we all have in the world now, where nothing's ever for free, And I think especially when you're communicating via social media, everyone's always a bit skeptical. But that doesn't, or you might think they are, but that doesn't mean that they are. It doesn't mean that the person isn't super excited that someone DM'd them telling them how cool their work is, or that they're just excited when your film comes out. So I think just getting rid of my own skepticism about the world made that easier, and just took people at face value a bit more and just enjoyed communicating with people about their work. And there's an element of like really wanting the best for other creators, which sounds like super wet, but I think that's really true. it's so hard. It's such a hard industry, and it's a very lonely industry. And so when I realized that communicating with these people wasn't just to gain, it was also to try to like give something too. Like, I hear you, man. Like, I'm right there with you. I can't wait for this film to come out. Like, good luck with it. So yeah, the contrived thing and the thing that was definitely more of a me issue, more of a me problem, I think, than something that's true about the nature of communication.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, like telling someone like go care about something and then go tell them that you care. And then when you're there, you're like, this feels weird. Like, do I
Yeah.
really care?
Yeah.
Like, can I silently care? And like maybe
Yeah,
they'll find me interesting,
I know.
it's
But
weird.
I think you've got to be able to hold two truths in one at that point, because it's okay to say that I want to get work from the efforts that I'm making here with these communications, because I think you'd be wrong and naive to say, oh, it's just because I want to make communications. But it could also be true that in that process, it's just in and of itself valuable to reach out to someone and be like, man, your art's amazing. Both of those things can exist at the same time. Ideally, one leads to work, but if it doesn't, it's still cool that you made that connection with someone and that you shared in the experience of making art.
Is there anything that you want to tell like anyone who works with me? Like, and
Do it.
like, I was like,
Do it now. I actually had someone message me the other day that you'd spoken with. It's like, oh, I heard you work with Chesko. What was it like? I was like, mate, just go and do it. It's great. I think people, as I'm sure, come to you in lots of different areas of their parts of their career. And I think, you'll know who people you can work with and where they're at and whether they're ready to work with you, yeah, or not. And I just think if you're in a place where you feel like you're relatively like confident with what you do, and you feel like you can add value to a story and you want to start telling stories, that's the huge thing. You've got to love storytelling, but you just don't really know how to do it. Like, yeah, definitely reach out to Jessica and enjoy having like an agony aunt every week for sort of 6 weeks. Because like, I know we're making a joke about it, but it is a legitimate thing when it's such a lonely industry and an isolated industry. And yeah, like when I see your wins online, I'm like, that's great. And I'm sure that you and I will work together again at some point later this year, or if not next, whenever. I know we will. And it's just also there are lots of, and I'm not gonna, there are lots of online courses, lots of composing courses, lots of like, get your first film tomorrow for a minute, like whatever the nonsense is that people speak about. Because that is also the same mentality of just give me work. Whereas your mentality is let's make a connection and there's value in that anyway. And let's see if we can get work together. So if you're looking for something that's authentic and just in service of your specific talents, your specific needs, then 100% work with Jessica.
okay, our tradition, well, my tradition on YouTube is to wave at the camera and say bye. So would you mind?
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you, mate.